Good morning, folks. This is Zach Hubeck with Wave and ISP Supplies powered by Wave. Thank you guys so much for coming to our MDU webinar here. We've got a bunch of folks joining in and coming in from the virtual Zoom vestibule. We'll give folks time to come in here and we'll get started in another minute or two here. Tom, inevitably, it's the first week of the month, and they are testing the emergency sirens near us. I hope you can't hear that in the background.
Never fails, right?
Exactly. All right, folks, why don't we get this started? First and foremost, thank you so much for joining us today for MDU Market Mastery webinar with Tom Roper and RUCKUS. My name is Zach Hubeck. I'm the Executive VP of Marketing for Wave, MBSI Wave, and now ISP Supplies powered by Wave. If you don't know, folks, in November, we acquired a great distribution partner in the service provider space, ISP Supplies. And with that, we wanted to bring an adjacent market to WISPs, ISPs, and wireless internet service providers, which is MDU, multi-dwelling units. And Wave themselves, we've been a RUCKUS partner since 2010. So we've been in the game for about 15 years. And a lot of folks on this call, when we look at the WISP community, you're bringing connectivity to rural America, you're bringing connectivity to different businesses. We saw a great adjacency with multi-dwelling units and similar business model. So a managed service provider is bringing leveraging that existing internet signal, fiber or fixed wireless, and now disseminating that signal within a multi-dwelling unit, things like senior living communities, college campuses, and apartment buildings, things along those lines. And really, our goal today is to bring together the best of both worlds here, our expertise with the RUCKUS partnership and MDU environments, and then also we wanted to get your juices flowing on if I'm a service provider and I feel like I've plateaued in my business or I want to grow my business more, we feel MDU is a very adjacent market with similar skill sets that you already possess with your teams and your engineers and your installers. And we wanted to enlighten you about how RUCKUS can help you in this environment. So I've got a great friend with us this morning here, Tom Roper. Good morning. Tom is RUCKUS's Senior Account Manager, and he's in charge of MDU here with RUCKUS. So I'll give the floor to Tom. If you have any questions, folks, please do click your Q&A or your chat. If the question is relevant for Tom, I'll pop in and ask him that question, or we'll hold some questions to the end. As a courtesy, folks, you are muted currently, just to give the floor to Tom. And I'll stop there and I'll say thank you guys again so much for attending this morning. And Tom, the floor is yours, my man.
Thanks, Zach, and thank you for the long partnership that we've had together. It's been an amazing ride. RUCKUS has been in business for about 25 years, and as you noticed, you've been right there along the way for most of that time. Let's jump right in. I've got a lot of information to cover with you, and my goal at the end of this session is for maybe you to have enough information to at least start a business process and a business decision, and looking at potential partnerships of how that business decision may mature. And we're going to talk about all aspects of MDU, the influencers, the partners. We'll dive into the competitive advantages of RUCKUS as a business partner. We'll look at deployment strategies. We'll look at what a project looks like, timelines. What is making this such an attractable market? And I think one of the most important things is looking at the potential growth of this market. So, Zach, let's jump in. Just a little background about myself. I've been in the MDU space for a little over 10 years. Believe it or not, I started my career with a law enforcement public safety software design, but quickly shifted over about 10, 12 years ago and started working with a couple MSPs, one of which that I worked with was acquired by Comcast. So I rolled into that role as a national account manager, trying to grow the MDU market As you well know, the larger ISPs are pretty much tied or had been tied to what we call a retail contract, exclusive or non-exclusive retail contracts for both video, phone, and Wi-Fi service. And I was selling into that market and trying to push the MDU model. Um, I switched gears a little bit about 18 months ago and joined Ruckus, and I won't ever look back. This is a great decision. As a company at Comcast and as at the other MSPs I worked with, we used Ruckus exclusively. And the reason being is because of the stability of the product, the experience that Ruckus had in the product. So in the space. So coming over to Ruckus and working for them, knowing that it was just a phenomenal product, was an easy move for me. Now I'm showing you my contact information. Please write it down. Please call me whenever you need. Let's start this journey together. We'll work hand in hand to see if this is the right business strategy for you. And I'll show this again at the end. And when I'm not doing selling Ruckus and supporting great clients like you, I'm building custom fishing rods and doing a lot of fishing myself. Um, so you'll see a lot of dogs in our presentation. Ruckus has adopted the Labrador Retriever as one of our marketing partners, and it's just fun because it just makes that marketing side fun. So we're a wholly owned company of CommScope Networks. Being in the wired space and fiber space, I'm sure you're familiar with CommScope. The good news about that relationship is we've got multi-billion-dollar companies supporting Ruckus. So we're financially stable. And I don't know if you've seen, we've been blowing up LinkedIn, hiring people left and right. So we're in a huge growth mode. And it's because we're continuing to grow in all facets of our business. And MDU we see as a big growth sector. And because of that, we actually formed our own team, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But dating back to 2004, Ruckus was actually called Video 54. We were an IPTV streaming company. And I want to share with you something that was really cool when I did some research a while back on this from then Selena Lowe, who was our CEO at the time. And her quote was, "Our technology called hyperdiversity uses a dynamic antenna array, and we call that beamflex now, and real-time software control to provide consistent whole home Wi-Fi coverage and throughput." That was a game changer for what we now know as Ruckus. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit because we'll show a comparison to one of our competitors of why that's an advantage. So we've been really, really blessed and recognized by the Gartner Group, by ABI Research. Recent quote that Ruckus continues to demonstrate strength, stability, innovation, reliability in a highly competitive market. So we feel like we're doing right things right. And we are continually evolving to make you, as our client, future ready. I don't like the word future proof, but I do like future ready. And we all want to be future ready. And you'll see with our product mix, as you get into this space or relationships with Ruckus, what we mean by, our product focus and the future of our network line. So couple things about why you may want to consider partnering with Ruckus. First of all, we absolutely lead this industry, period. Now, I'm not saying all wireless industry. I'm not naive to say that. But the MDU specific industry, I feel like we are the number one leader by a long shot. We have over 1 million units deployed in MDU, over 1 million. We've been doing it for 25 years. And now what we're bringing to the table is simplified management, AI-driven optimization. And we'll talk about why that's important to you as a WISP or someone that's getting into the MDU market, because now you don't have to have all those complex systems to do your onboarding and your statistical data and your troubleshooting. We have a platform for that for you now. There are a lot of consumer grade competitors out there. And when I say consumer grade, these are lesser priced companies that's coming in a very lucrative MDU market and are representing themselves as RUCKUS equivalent. And I can tell you, I will be more than happy to go against any of them head to head, and let's find out really who is the best in this space, because you've got to look at coverage, you got to look at speed, you got to look at all the issues related to a very complex environment. If you're thinking about 300 units stacked in a mini tower with thousands of devices hitting the internet at the same time, with very high demands um, for Teams meetings, for 4K video streaming or 8K video streaming to, to gamers. There's a lot of to deal with just in that, let alone having to do with the structural complexities of MDU, steel, and concrete, and those kind of things. And Ruckus has figured it out. We've got a model that works really, really well. So I want to show you the difference of what a consumer grade product from a coverage perspective looks like compared to a Ruckus product. Now on the left-hand side of your screen, that's one of our access points with the top taken off of it. And hopefully you can see my pointer here. But you see these little risers or these little crosses on the access point. Those are the beam flex array antennas. And what that means to someone that doesn't understand our technology is we're pushing data back directly to the source. So if Zach makes an inquiry in his apartment and he hits his access point and there's 20 people in his apartment and he's just got some folks hanging out, it knows where Zach is in the apartment, and it knows which array on that access point to send that information back to Zach. We patented that technology years and years and years ago, and that's just one of them, of the technologies that really separates Ruckus apart from our competitors. That makes the overall reliability and dependability of that data the highest that it can possibly be in the market. So bear with me just a minute on this particular survey. This was a site we recently took back over from a competitor. I'm not going to mention their name. But this was an area of a 2-bedroom apartment where we were able to go in. This is an apartment complex who was just really frustrated with their performance of this particular competitor. So we were able to go in and do an EchoHow survey. And what we did is we took their access point, performed an EchoHow test. Then we mounted our access point right next to it, turned theirs off, so it would be in the exact same area. We closed all the doors in the apartment complex, and we ran a test of speed, of coverage, and throughput, and signal strength, and noise within the apartment complex. And this is some of the results that we got. So this is the competitor, and why they allowed this access point to be installed here, I have no clue, but they did. This is a 2-bedroom apartment. These are the bedrooms. This is the entrance to the apartment. This is the living room area. The dining room goes into the kitchen, into the washroom, wash and dryer room, and there's some bathrooms here. So the access point is actually located in a bedroom, which is why I have no idea. But we ran a data rate test, which is just a speed test. This is what the competitor result is. Green in an EchoHow means good. So if you're starting to get some shaded areas, these are the areas that would experience some degradation in speed. And you can already see in the main areas of the living room, they were already seeing some degradation of speed. And that's why some of the complaints came in with this particular complex. You see in the comparable Ruckus, same location, you didn't see those degradations. Next example we ran was maximum throughput, and that's the highest possible data transfer rate. And we measured that from that same access point, and we saw immediately that the throughput for the signal strength started to degrade immediately just outside the bedroom, where Ruckus was able to cover almost the entire apartment before there was any degradation. And the only real degradation that we found for ours was in the washroom. And you've got to think about it, all these doors were closed. So it was in a kind of an interesting environment that we ran this test. And
Only
last but not least, and I
only
think this,
only
yeah, I'm sorry.
26 megabits in the shower, Tom. Only 26 megabits in the shower, buddy.
I know, and while you're doing your laundry, you're just going to have to deal with it, Um, and then also the last test we ran was signal strength and coverage, and again, and I think you can see red is not good, and there's a lot of red on that left-hand side. So this was a no-brainer for them to switch out. If and when we switched it out, by the way, we moved this access point to the center of the living room, which is where it should have been deployed to begin with. And that gave them phenomenal coverage all the way around. So just wanted to kind of share with you an apples to apples comparison of Ruckus to what we call a consumer grade competitor that's selling into this space today. All right, let's move on to specifically talking about MDU. So selling into MDU requires really what I call a tailor approach. It's really unique selling proposition to the owners, the property managers, and ultimately the residents. Um, we'll discuss a lot of strategies on how to pitch yourself to these particular entities. Hopefully will help you discover insights into building relationships with property managers, which is really key, navigating contract negotiations and overcoming common objections. And whether you're new to MDU sales or looking to improve your success rate, hopefully we can give you some tools that'll help you along the way. And then regardless of your delivery strategy, whether it be fiber to the unit, traditional Ethernet, we've got solutions for both of those strategies. So let's look at some discussion topics. We'll look at the total addressable market, a couple paths of how you can get into this space, what that target market looks like, why this is such an interesting vertical, the influencers, choosing the right partners, the competitive landscape. We'll look at elements of the sale and proposal, and we'll get into contract options and negotiation, some tips, and maybe hopefully have some extra time for Q&A at the end. This to me is one of the main reasons to even consider this from a business perspective. There's a lot of information on this screen. And by the way, I'm going to provide this presentation to Zach, and he can certainly distribute to you, if you desire to have a copy. But let's look at right here in the middle. We are looking at several different portions of MDU. Conventional means the typical apartment. Sometimes they're called market rate. That's your average apartment in rural or downtown USA. Then you have student living, and typically that's off-campus student housing. These are the apartments that serve those students that are not in the dorm. And then you have senior living, which has a high growth potential. And now there's build to rent, which is also a big vertical that's evolving. And then, of course, let's not forget affordable housing. There's a lot of push to get the equity in affordable housing to give them Wi-Fi capabilities as well. But look at these growths in the next 4 years. These are represented in billions of dollars, 68%, 110%, 84%, ridiculous growth rates. So this market is going to be around for a long, long time. One of my jobs at Ruckus is to do outreach to REITs and owners. A REIT is a real estate investment trust. Sometimes you have a group of investors together that will form these REITs to do these design builds. And my goal is to reach out to them and to educate them on Wi-Fi technology. And hopefully when they make a decision, it's going to be a Ruckus decision. Now, in doing so, one of the things that we talk about is, future growth. I had a conversation with one, and I won't mention who it is, but it's one of the top 100 builders in the US. I think they've currently got about 90,000 units. They're looking at new construction starts beginning next year of $2 billion year over year. That's ridiculous. That's a lot of growth. So we're going to see this economy shift of kind of sitting on the sideline to more getting activated and getting your sleeves rolled up. And what is really fueling this growth for managed Wi-Fi? It's obvious. It's the demand for really high quality internet experience in MDU, smart home platform, remote learning. We've seen a huge growth, online education demands, work from home environments, keeping residents leased in your building. To do that, you have to have high quality, very fast, very reliable Wi-Fi. Data security is a huge issue, and it has to be simplified. It has to be easy for the customer to get on, to ask for questions, to get their passwords reset. It has to be easy on the property management team. And if you can even add that element of a net operating income model, you've certainly hit a home run with managed Wi-Fi. So let's get into some of the numbers of what's causing this balloon in this industry. There's a lot of information here, but we're going to keep it super simple. To get into this space, there's obviously an equipment investment cost. Now, I've got this equipment investment cost at $1,200 per unit. Now, that is high. Your typical investment cost per unit, when I talk about equipment, access points, switches, and the fiber that's connecting the risers of the building or the connectivity between the garden style properties. I put $1,200 in because I wanted to put in our Wi-Fi 7 technology into this model. Because if I was building a new MDU property today, I would want to make it future ready. And Wi-Fi 7 now gives us multi-gig capability. So this is assuming you're putting in our R670 access point. Now, this is where you come in. There's got to be a provider for our circuit. And we're assuming this is a 300 unit property, and the cost to the owner after a support fee is added, and this can change, this is just an example. We're saying that the owner is now going to have to pay $15 a month recurring per apartment to get our services. So they've got to pay a capital investment and they've got to pay an operating investment. Okay. So now, if you look at this $15 figure, what is the street price of what internet costs today? Gig speed internet, $100. That's what I'm paying at my home. But I conservatively said gig speed internet would be about 75. I'm not talking about multi-gig, but gig speed internet is probably going to cost around $75. So that's a net operating income if we have to pay out $15 a month of $60 per unit. We now have a break-even point of capturing this capital investment of 20 months. That is crazy good. Let's make it even better for you. At a current cap rate, and I looked this up yesterday, of 0.53 for MDU, at 300 units, gives us a net operating income model over 7 years of over $1 million of profitability gained over expenses for that owner. What if they own 100 properties? It's $100 million. And I use 7 years. You're like, wait a minute now, don't we usually do an equipment refresh after 5 years? Not with Wi-Fi 7 technology. We feel very strongly you're not going to have to do that. We'll be installing multi-gig switches with multi-gig access points. Right now, most devices can't even access Wi-Fi 7 channels. And so we feel like you're very comfortable in putting this model out in front of potential owners. And check this out. What owner wouldn't love to get 185% return on their investment? Crazy dollars, crazy figures. All right. What do you do as a WISP and how do I get there? You've got really two choices from my purview. You can go it alone, which is perfectly fine. That has the highest revenue potential because you're not going to split any revenue there, but it also has the greatest risk and exposure. It's a very mature market. Competition is mixed. There's been a lot of failures, been a lot of successes. You need to have a very, very well-defined business process for onboarding and support. The good news is I couldn't say this 5 years ago. You would have to build some of your own processes to do this. Ruckus now has what we call Ruckus One, which is our cloud-based strategy where we have most of this, if not all of this, baked into our control platform for onboarding, to give you support tools using our AI tools, to help you with setup, deployment templates that our engineers have designed for you, integrations to PMS software, to IoT, all in this platform. You've got to have some sort of support for IP telephones, and you may already be doing this. And you've got to look at considering CapEx and lease selling models because some of the owners will want to see both options where they can lease this equipment over 7 to 10 years or purchase that equipment. Or you've got the other option, partner with a well-qualified, successful managed service provider. There's a rev share. The ISP, being yourself, deploys the circuit. Could be, a partnership of who does like the initial truck rolls or kind of working those things out. Who provides the options for the leasing of the hardware and the wiring. The MSP though is they're going to be taking care of doing the site surveys, doing the engineers work, doing the design, doing the installation, doing the support, doing the PMS integrations. Property management system is what that acronym stands for. That's the accounting systems because you don't want to have to bring on Zach in Unit 101 with having manually enter Zach's information to know that we've got to send him Wi-Fi credentials via text message. And that's all part of the onboarding process. Let me share with you one of our partners that I talked to the other day who's successful as an ISP. They actually started out as a WISP. This is a company called Dojo Networks. And there are others like Dojo, but I thought I would highlight them today. When I talked to Dan, the owner, the other day, and I said, Dan, what does your model look like? He said, we're a straight up 50-50 rev share. Dojo will provide all the site surveys on existing projects for like your brownfield. They'll do the configuration, the build on the greenfield or the new ones. They'll do the deployment. They'll do the support. And they'll let you white label it. And basically it'll say, your network supported by Dojo Network. So they'll have a small say in the labeling, if you will, or powered by Dojo Networks. They will take care of all the truck rolls. They will actually, as I mentioned, started out as a WISP. So if you're looking to get in pretty quickly and you're looking at a partnership to quickly cover some lost opportunities in the territories that you already covered, this to me would be a great opportunity. And I will be glad to connect you with Dojo and other Dojo-like companies and let you compare and do the interview and find out which you're most comfortable with before you move forward with any projects.
Hey, Tom, looks like we've got a question here. Jonathan Nicholson's raised his hand. Jonathan, I'm going to unmute you here, sir, and go ahead and fire away your question to Tom.
No, it was I accidentally raised my hand. Sorry about that.
Hey, glad you made it this morning.
Yes, sir.
All right, you're going back on mute.
Thank you.
That's all right, no problem. All right, who we marketing to, guys? We talked about it a little bit already. We're going to be looking at the holding companies of these properties, owners. Some of them are private, some of them are REITs. And basically a REIT is usually publicly traded to raise their funds. Conventional market rate, high rise, mid tower, garden style, brownfield meaning existing, greenfield meaning new construction, off-campus student housing. They're extremely competitive in that market. So you'll find the lowest margins in that market. And it's a per bed model as opposed to sold as a per unit model. And then to me, one of the other areas that is complex, but equally as lucrative is the senior market. And the reason why I say it's complex is if you think about the support of a senior, community versus a college campus community, it may be a lot more support calls coming in from a senior community. And you've got the medical side that you have to deal with all the HIPAA requirements. We take care of all those security issues for you on the network. It's just how you administer and set those networks up. And of course, you've got build to rent and affordable housing that are good markets as well. So
Hey,
quick facts.
Tom, I've got a quick question for you.
Yeah.
Obviously we've got a bunch of service providers on the call here. A real life example of where a WISP may play into this into student housing. Let's take Charleston, Illinois, for example, Eastern Illinois University. I did a quick Google search here. So if any of our service providers are serving Charleston, Illinois, population of 17,000 people, that's not a reflection of Eastern Illinois, who has about 8,500 students. It looks like they've got 11 residence halls and 2 apartment complexes. I know you talked a little bit about student housing, but does Eastern Illinois own those apartments and residence halls? When you've seen situations with student housing, does that service provider make that revenue, or does the school get that revenue? Talk to us a little bit about how that works, Tom.
Absolutely. So it's kind of a mixture. Usually the campus will extend their wide area network into the student housing complexes, or what we call the dorms, particularly if they're on campus. And so they'll manage that within themselves. Now, that's the potential sale, depending on how well versed their or how sharp, if you will, their networking staff is. They may need some help, managing the student side of it. For what we're primarily talking about here are the privately held properties that are held by investors outside of the campus ownership, where a private entity will build these apartment complexes. Students will move into them because they're kind of tired of the dorm life or just want an alternative. They may be on the campus. They may be just away from the campus, conveniently located. Those are the ones that would typically be in our purview, but don't turn your back on particularly the smaller campus communities. I remember as an MSP, we worked with some very, very large community colleges that actually had on-site dorms in a community technical school environment. They had thousands of rooms there, and it was a good contract for us. And they just simply did not have the network expertise to run those networks. They were fine with their building connectivity, but they just did not want the overhead and to deal with the student onboarding and all that kind of stuff. And so we took that over, and it was a good project for us. So.
Got it. Tom, can RUCKUS help our service provider customers? Let's say they want to go after that privately owned apartment complexes just on the periphery of those dormitories. Do you guys have a database, or do you guys have some market research that you can help our service providers with to be able to find who those private owners are? Or is that just a matter of local knowledge being in the area?
I tell you, boots on the ground, you can't replace that. Your service providers that we have on the call is going to know their area backwards and forwards. Most of what we'll have to do is research and do online research that way. And we still won't be able to get them, but we can use tools like apartment.com. And there's some other tools that we can use to help navigate who the potentials are. There are also some tools that you can buy access to that actually track new builds and complete renovations and transfers of ownerships of properties. And so they actually will record when a permit is actually being applied for. And so early on in the building cycle what's going to be happening, and you can do it within the communities that you serve to get your leg up there. So that could be, we could work together with that.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom, very much.
Perfect. So just a couple quick facts. We talked about the approximate CapEx per unit. For some reason, consultants are okay and comfortable with with oversubscribing circuits into these properties, we certainly don't need 10 gig circuits. They're not coming close to the bandwidth. I think we talked about 25 megabits per unit usage. But just beware that, you may have to put in a 10 gig circuit and you're going to sit there and go, look, you got to be kidding me. But that's just the nature of this business. In recent polling, 30% of the residents say they have a poor Wi-Fi experience and they would want a much better experience. 90% say the most, and I didn't even put this in here, 90% say the most important amenity in MDU is Wi-Fi. Now, the MSPs face a really complex landscape in this vertical, trying to balance the technical challenges with the competitive pricing. You've got to educate the client. There's a lot of high service demands. Your SLAs in this market are huge, and the expectation of availability is tremendous. Success requires a deep expertise in Wi-Fi networking. And I strongly recommend that your sales team, get certified to the level they're comfortable with. Let us help you with some training, because you don't want to go into this market blind, not knowing the complexities of what you're actually selling. Because you're going to be looking for strong relationships that offer scalable solutions. Those that can't adapt to those demands in this market are the ones that don't last very long. Real quick, who are some of the influencers? You've got consultants that are constantly offering RFPs. Those are on the left-hand side. You've got two primary legal entities that you may run into, you may not, depending on the size of the owner. The large owners have locked down these two attorney firms to protect their interests, to make sure performance for Wi-Fi stays at the highest level that it can possibly be. And that's MDU Law and Art Hubecker. I'm not saying that you need to go to the consultants to get your business. I think you have the most advantage because you have already established your reputation in your back door. So you're bringing some credibility to these owners. Now you're bringing a new product to them. To me, that is the biggest value proposition that you can add to your market space. So you've got to choose the right partner. You've got to have a partner that's innovative, proven, and experienced. We feel that RUCKUS is that best partner. We're going to be sharing configuration templates, best practices, certifications, aligning support organizations, training with you. You obviously are the cabling partner, but if you don't have one for doing some of the low voltage cabling work, it's nice to have those in the hip pocket. And there's also some video services and IoT partners, and maybe some finance teams that you'll need to consider partners with. Very, very, very competitive landscape. And this is a real busy slide. Now, remember, you've got all the larger ISPs out, working their space, even outside their space, in bringing these managed deals to fruition as well. But some of the key differentiators, I think, are being able to be scalable, integrated to different outside solutions, having integrated resident and owner portals, giving them insight into their investments, and integrations to external systems like property management systems and analytics and reporting. These are some of the components of the sale, and these sales cycles last about 18 months. Not all of them, but some of them do, because you're signing the contract while the building is still being built. So it could take a while for these buildings to be built and for you to do your final cutover to go live to get your final payment out of these contracts. So we're going to be doing surveys. We're going to be doing designs, building technical specifications, building our value proposition of why we think we're the best entity for this particular client, building a pricing structure within your bill of materials, making sure we can meet the service level agreements that the attorneys are within our contracts. If you're using your own paper, you need to make sure you have an MDU contract ready to be deployed, because because you're going to have that, obviously, to cover the interest of the owner. You've got to look at project timelines. You got to have project management staff, support and maintenance staff, training and onboarding, integration capabilities. You got to look at scalability options, compliance and security measures, contract terms and conditions, having references. And then you've got to do some post-implementation reviews and evaluations and site coverage maps and those kind of things. So there's a lot to the elements of this sale. So partnering with someone, if you're relatively new in this space, is probably not a bad first step. Then you get into the contract. There could be a revenue share agreement, a straight CapEx model, or there could be an OpEx model where you're actually leasing it over a 7 or 10-year period. And those are all negotiable based on, what the flavor of the current economic conditions. Since the economy was pretty slow, the OpEx model was really attractive. Now that that's starting to change a little bit, there's some momentum. We'll hopefully see interest rates fall. The cost of money is going to be better. That cap rate might be a better option for that 5 to 7 year contract model. Some quick tips I want to share with you. Understand the nuances of this space. Make sure your salespeople have some level of technical capability. Know the specific challenges such as resident retention, property management efficiency. Be specialized in this industry. Give your customers some reason to buy your products. Cultivate long-term relationships. You know how to do this. You've been doing this for years. Make sure that you're building those relationships with the key decision makers. And present managed Wi-Fi as more than just an internet solution. Highlight it as a way to solve problems. It's just not giving the resident a wonderful experience, but the property management staff, for example, running the security cameras on that same network, running the property management software on that same network, running the concierge lockers, your card entry systems. All of those things can be run on the same network. And you need to educate these owners about that. Understand the cost sensitivity of MDU owners, compared and be prepared to negotiate long-term contracts. If someone starts beating you down on price and say, hey, RUCKUS, I've always heard is going to be expensive. Why would I want to go there? My response to them would be this. You're spending $2,000 for granite countertop that most residents could really care less about. What they do care about is an amenity called Wi-Fi, and they'll leave your property if it's not the best because your neighbor's better. They'll get out of their lease as quickly as possible, and you will lose that lease up going into the next year. Is that worth $200 to you per unit? Not to have that investment for 7 to 10 years? You won't get that investment out of a nice dishwasher. That's what they need to understand, because they're money people and they want to get the best they can for the cheapest that they can. So you've got to sell value. And I think that's important. A customer mentality also will certainly, help your salespeople align with the managed Wi-Fi solution. And also, MDU deals often with very long sales cycles. So be prepared for that. Couple more selling tips as we kind of wrap this up. Clearly understand your value positions. Align yourself with the property owners and the owner's pain points. If you're partnered with the cheapest solution in the industry, it's because the product cannot stand up to the complexity and rigors of MDU. The result? A degraded resident experience because of constant support issues and truck rolls and lease ups. The graphs that I showed you previously in the presentation were a result of complaint after complaint after complaint of dropped calls, poor quality of service, dropped connections, to the point where they were still in their contract, and they ended up almost suing the company for breach of contract because the residents were so frustrated. You don't want to get yourself into that by partnering with the wrong partner. Now, one of the things that we offer that I think is really good, and we can do this for your teams as well, is we offer what we call information exchanges, where we'll actually meet with your teams on a regular basis to talk about new and emerging technologies, to bring them into your array of offerings, if you will, to let you know about best practices. And each one of our teams that does this has a senior engineer to help you with complex configurations and designs. We're not just going to sell you gear, guys. We're going to be with you from day one until we're out of business. And I hope that's never. This is the team that we have that's going to support you. So obviously you've got Zach. We've got 4 dedicated senior MDU engineers for the MDU team. 3 dedicated senior salespeople specifically for our MSPs, product development, account development, and me as a senior account manager. And I'm helping along the way, providing training, support, and best practices any way that I possibly can. Now, last but not least, and I'll do this in just about a minute so we have some time. We have just introduced, and to me, this is the WISP best friend, what we call RUCKUS One. This is our newest centralized network management cloud-based platform. Uses AI to predict and resolve issues before they ever impact the resident. This is your control strategy, your network monitoring strategy, your dashboard provision, your property management software integration capability, your insight into the health of the network, where we can do root cause analysis before their failures and give you recommended actions and changes, where we can do a before we make a change configuration to what that change looks like after we implement it, before we ever implement it. I know that's confusing, but if we see a change that we think needs to be done to the network through RUCKUS One, the AI tool can say, okay, this is what we're dealing with now. But if you make this change, this is what the configuration change will look like. If that helps you in determining the implementation before you make that change, nobody in the industry is doing this. Nobody in the industry is doing this. And we're bringing in recommendations every single day to you for low, high, and medium priority items to constantly look at the health of the network. This is a complex model, but it almost looks like an amoeba. The AI tool is constantly moving and shaping the network to the degree that we set it up with you to make sure the network stays at its highest availability and highest level of health. And anything related to a change that needs to be done or equipment that needs to be changed out or whatever the case may be, the tool provides you that level of service. And not only that, we're providing you tools to allow your owners now real-time insight into their investment. Nobody is doing this in the market today. Nobody is doing this because everything is reactive. They're pulling data off the network, crunching it in a spreadsheet, and spitting it out. That's not real time. Now the property managers can have a more idea of what's going on within their network. The people that sign the contracts, the REIT investors can look at the health of the network at the levels that they need to look at. Unheard of in this market, but this is why we'd love for you to partner with RUCKUS. And Zach, I'm going to call it time, and hopefully, and I'll be glad to stay on a little bit longer if we've got some additional questions. But this is my contact again, and I'd love to have a chat with you and move our conversation forward.
Awesome. I love it. Tom, you offered for your team to do a technical deep dive with the teams. Folks, Tom talked about on the business side, there's two paths you can go down. You can do it on your own or you can partner with an MSP. If you do want to go down that path of doing it on your own and becoming a service provider in the RUCKUS channel, there's things like onboarding days where they acclimate new partners. They have monthly meetings for that. They also have RUCKUS Essential Days, which are also very technical in nature. So you're very, very well supported here. If you did have questions for Tom, certainly available, and you're not only backstopped by Wave, but also RUCKUS as well. I do see we've got quite a few Canadian partners on as well. So MBSI Wave is also a RUCKUS distributor, and we're also able to help you up in Canada as well. So we're excited to work with you folks. I am looking through our Q&A and our chat here. I don't see any questions that have come through. A couple of folks asking, can you share the presentation? We will, both a recorded session and a PDF of that. And if we don't have any other questions, we can wrap this thing. Give people just another couple of seconds here if they wanted to ask a question, then we can wrap. All right. Tom, any other closing thoughts or any final thought for the team?
First of all, Zach, thank you for hosting and putting this together for us. Thank you for being just an amazing partner and just an outreach to the community. If you're still on, feel free to reach out and as you explore this and let's have some conversations. And if we need to come on site to your place and have these conversations with your senior team, please let us know. We'll be glad to pack it up and have some local conversations over some lunch with you. So just let us know how we can help you.
Awesome. Tom, you're a gentleman. Thank you so much for the valuable content today.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.
Bye-bye.